Hello everybody, how are you guys? We're over here in South Fayette, which is a area outside Pittsburgh proper, or what I call the city. I don't know how locals term it. South Fayette is I was just doing the research on it, had a minute to pull over and check out the research, the history on South Fayette. It's very fascinating. We're in South Fayette as the sun is starting to go down. As we've got cloud cover, so it's been a nice cool day, not too humid. And South Fayette, guys, this is, I wonder how many times this has happened in American history, because of the development of the country. South Fayette started out as one city. Now you have two. You have South Fayette and North Fayette. And Fayette, the original town, was founded by Matthew P. Fayette in 1810, which is amazing. So, originally it was just his homestead, right? I'm just going to be careful on this curve here. My friend said, "You drive like Grandpa." I said, "Yeah." You better believe it. So Fayette established the area as his homestead, and it's funny because his property was like 40,000 acres. Can you imagine? Why? I mean, I know there's plenty of land, but I mean, even if you had a staff, I don't know what they call them, ranch hands or whatever, but that's a lot of land. I mean, did they even see their land half the time? I don't know. But of course, that area diminished over time. But anyway, his property then became the town. Because he added a post office, he added a small school for the people that worked for him, and eventually they incorporated and it became the town. And then his wealth grew, and just like so often happens, even today, a rift developed between his oldest son, Denny, and the youngest son, Alfred. Now, you say, well, what about the daughters? See, this was in the early to mid 1800s. Unfortunately, they treated the daughters differently in those days, guys. But Denny and Alfred were the ones that were going to be taking over the property eventually as the old man aged. And the rift got so bad that they ended up putting a fence line between. They split the property in half. Essentially split the town in half, ran a big white picket fence down the middle, or a ranch fence, and Denny and his brood lived on one side and Alfred and his brood on the other, and hence North Lafayette and North Fayette, or Fayette, and South Fayette. I mean, what a crazy, because if they had kept it together, they would have had a heck of a, they would have been like some of these ranches in Texas that are still tens of thousands of acres. I just find it amazing. So that's let's call it 3 fun facts about Fayette. That's the first one is the amazing split. They say you can still see some of the original fence line that split the town. The second fun fact. Let me just pull over so we can finish this story. Look at these things. Look at these. They needed these machines. What do you call these? Cranes. They needed these cranes back in Old Man Fayette's days. Fayette's. How do you say it? Fayette's days. So then the rivalry, of course, intensified over time, even after Alfred and Denny went to their the great Ranch in the Sky. And there, when the younger kids took over for the older, the rivalry intensified, because not only did they have that history of a rift between them, but sports was a big, as it is throughout Pittsburgh history, sports was a big part of their lives, and they would compete in everything. Everything was a competition: football, basketball, baseball, softball, volleyball, tetherball, tiddlywinks, checkers, chess. I mean, guys, unbelievable. These guys would compete. These guys, if you set up a bet on if a spider would catch a fly, they would bet on it, and they would compete, and it would be this whole ordeal to see if the spider. They'd sit there and watch the spider guys crawl along the web to see if they would get the fly. I mean, they were that competitive. So the second fun fact is that rift still exists today. And here is the kicker, and we'll call it the third fun fact of this ordeal going on in Fayette, or Fayette, whatever you prefer, whatever the locals prefer. Today, the competition has subsided as the family members have either passed, moved, or ceded some of the property to the cities. You know, it's less intense, but it's still, you know, when North Fayette and South Fayette high schools compete, guys, it's as big as any state college rivalry you want to name. Okay? And one of the traditions that really, you know, local officials don't look too kindly on, but it has not subsided over 150 years. The night of the big game, either side, North Fayette or South Fayette, will drive to the other side in a school bus, and on top of the school bus, they've rigged rocket launchers that fire snowballs at 150 snowballs per second at the other team's school, breaking windows, knocking over signs. I mean, it's chaos out there, guys. And of course, they know it's going to happen. But guess what? The city officials is a response. They're like, well, we did the same thing when we were kids. They didn't have 150 snowballs per minute like today's technology. And even 2 generations before that, they had to launch the snowballs by hand, if you can imagine. I mean, God forbid you'd have to actually put some effort in, you know, physical effort. You know, these kids don't know what these kids today are launching these snowballs, 150 snowballs per minute. They have no idea how good they have it. In the old days, you had to throw them by hand and pack them by hand. So that tradition, although officially the school and city leaders, scold the pranksters, they don't really punish them because they know it's a long-standing 150-year-old tradition to pelt the other team's school, windows, cars, and people with snowballs every year.